Hey everyone, welcome to the Slice of Construction podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the co-founder and CEO of Truss Payments, Matthew Smith. What's going on?
Hey, Jared. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you on. Uh, I know this, but I was telling people that my doubles tennis partner in high school was Matthew Smith, and you were not him, but it's it's always great to know another Matthew Smith. How
I love that you put that on there. Also, the actor Matt Smith from Doctor Who, right?
I'm
So,
sure there's a lot. There's probably a lot of Matt. It's it's I don't. It's a great name though. It's easy to remember. People can't forget your name. If they do, there's a problem there. So, uh, well, I'm really excited for us to chat today. We usually kind of kick things off with the standard question of you're walking down the road, someone runs into you, they see you wearing that sweatshirt, and they go, "What is Trust Payments?" What do you tell them?
yeah, so we're a bank for construction companies. Think like Venmo or Cash App, but for construction. One of the important things we focus on is we say we can do everything your traditional bank does, but better, and then we add all that like digital payment stuff on top. Um, so we've got a lot going on, but that's what I would say if I was walking down the street to someone, say to someone walking down the street.
And why is okay? So everything that the typical bank can do, but better, is it because of that? Like, I'm assuming whenever you focus in on a specific area, right, like this construction space, you just better understand a lot of different things, right? The risk profile, the workflows. Yeah, talk me
Yeah,
through
that's a
those
good.
differentiators.
Yeah, so I think when we say everything the traditional bank does, a lot of it has to do around checks. And so in construction, you might you might have like a portion of your payments on digital right now, or maybe you're 100% non-digital and you're all using checks. And what we've been able to do is bring all that check functionality that people expect, but combine it with a really easy to use digital solution. And then the other piece that we focused on, and you touched on that, is around the risk profiling and how we settle transactions. So for those folks listening in construction that have tried to use a digital payment solution and been like, it's day number 5, where is my money? We've solved all those issues. And so we actually give instant settlement on all incoming transactions into your account. So think, when you get that big check for 50K and you deposit it into your bank and the bank says to you, hey, sorry, we're going to put a 10-day hold on this. We don't do that. We've kind of focused on underwriting these types of companies. And so construction companies are choosing to use us because we can support those types of payments.
What led you to want to start this in the first place? Because not every day someone wakes up and goes, "I'm going to start a construction fintech company." What were kind of the steps to lead? Because I always say this: there's always like the seed, right, that gets planted where you see something. It could be years in advance, or it's kind of just a slow buildup, and then it finally there's that eureka point of I'm going to go ahead and start this company. What was your kind of eureka point of all right, I've seen enough. I've heard enough. I need to build this.
Yeah, so ironically, I'm an outsider. So I don't have a background in construction. I don't even have a background in banking, actually. I'm a software engineer. So I studied software engineering, and I was the only person out of my friends that went to university. All of my friends growing up all became construction workers, or some of them started their own companies. A lot of them are like on job sites, and they would make fun of me a lot, actually. It's another story, but they'd be like, oh, your hands are soft from working on the computer and we're on the job sites every day. And as we're hanging out and I'm learning about how things are working, especially with one of my really good friends who started his own general contracting business, um, I just realized there was this massive gap in how money was moving. Um, the banking stuff we kind of fell into, but really it just started from, hey, how do we make payments move faster for these companies? And so it was like you just kind of stumble and then fall into this massive problem, and you learn more and more. And because my background's in engineering, I just kind of like ate it all up and built this awesome solution for it. My co-founder as well, also a software engineer. So I think what you'll find with Truss is that we don't, we're deeply technical. We're not construction people hiring some third party developer to build some tool that they have an idea for. We are the engineers building this thing. We build very fast, and the UI and everything is kind of like handcrafted, you could call it.
When your friends make fun of you for soft hands, do you ever tell them that, listen, carpal tunnel is a real thing and you can get cramps when you're doing this type of stuff, right? Um,
Obviously, I
yeah,
tell them that. Yeah.
it's it's no, it's I was actually looking at my hands the other day and I was noticing like not as much calluses on them. So I have this pull-up bar now, and I try to go and do that just enough to get, when I shake someone's hand, I want them to feel that callus now.
Jared,
Uh,
I started doing rock climbing, and so now they
oh
can't
God.
make fun of me anymore.
Well, no, now they make fun of you for the other way because your hands are like sandpaper when you shake their hand,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, I used to do
Exactly.
bouldering, which
Okay.
it's it's crazy what the hand can endure
Oh my
when
God.
you're
Yeah.
with these rocks. Yeah. Um, so it's kind of my like a lot of my family is in construction. I wasn't in construction. That's kind of why I wanted to start this podcast. Is I heard a lot of the stories, and I would really love to kind of obviously a big part of what you're doing is the feedback that you receive. Would love to hear more about how you take that feedback. This is a question I ask a lot of people: how you take that feedback and decide what's relevant to future roadmap and what's maybe we put it in the archives and we go back to it at some point. But how do you personally kind of take the feedback that you receive from your users and better incorporate it into improving the product?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's oftentimes people will say some sort of feedback or ask for some feature, and it's your job as the builder of this thing to interpret that and kind of um, give them a solution. Maybe it's not exactly what they asked for, but it's some variation of the thing. I'm trying to think of some example of that we've seen in the past. I think it's like so we make it really easy to pass on we charge convenience fees to your clients, for example. So one of our big selling features is that you can collect credit card payments for free. And so the reason that came about was because construction companies that I talked to would all say, we don't accept digital payments. We don't want to pay the fees. And so I thought, okay, how do we build a digital payment solution that's free for construction companies to use, has really quick settlement so that they get access to the funds right away? And then we kind of went from there. And we started from scratch with how we would design and build that so that it matched the business model that construction companies have, where they're not willing to pay for these fees. This is kind of an example. Like their solution is, hey, I'll just take checks, or just make the card fees cheaper. But from my perspective, it was like, okay, how do I turn that into a real solution? um, it's kind of like if you're a construction company to listening to this, it's kind of like a homeowner asking you for this like special thing that they want, and then you have to like figure, special design or special kitchen they need, and you have to like figure out how to actually make it all work.
That fee is a big deal. A lot of people, like you talk to in most companies, right? They don't want to pay that, even if it means in some cases more business for them, right? By offering it
Yeah.
up in a more in a quicker payment as a result, right? It hits the bank a little bit faster. So that's cool that you offer that. What's let's talk a little bit about kind of future of the construction fintech industry. Are there particular trends that you're kind of following that you think are going to fall into line over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think there's a transition. I think that there's a lot of um, older folks that are kind of moving out of the industry, and a lot of younger people coming into the industry that expect a different type of efficiency. They're used to those kind of digital options. Um, and so I think over time it's going to shift where there's going to be a lot more tech used in construction. I'm excited for robots, but we don't have to tangent onto robots yet. Um, but I mean, on the payment side, man, I think that we have a different angle than other platforms. People listening to this will say, oh, if you're using Jobber or Joist or whatever tool, you're saying, oh, they have embedded payments in the tool I'm using, but I never use it because it's fucking slow. And sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on the podcast, but
It's
because
fine.
it's slow, because it's fucking slow, and the money takes forever to hit my account. And that's like literally why we built this, because the adoption rate on all those systems are so terrible. So we're like, how do we craft the system that the construction company actually wants to use with no bullshit? And we also don't force you to change anything. We don't make you change your project management. We just do payments. So think of us as like Venmo for construction or Cash App for construction. Um, I think it's going to shift where people are going to expect that type of thing. They want those instant transactions, want access to their money right away, and they don't want to pay like an arm and a leg to get it. Um, yeah, I don't know if I'm like sometimes as an engineer, I'm like, is that the sexiest thing to build? Is like, oh, we're revolutionizing payments, but whatever. Maybe the robots are a little bit cooler.
You so Trust Payments was part of, it was a YC company, right? A Y Combinator company.
Yeah,
Talk me through that experience. What were maybe some of the key lessons you learned going through that program? I think, or when were you 20? Yeah, 2021. Was it summer 2021?
we did summer 2021. Yeah.
What was that experience like, and how did that impact you? It's obviously been now 3 years, right? How did it
Mm.
impact you from since you went through that program?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of changes your trajectory. It's like for those folks that don't know why Combinator, it's like getting into like um, if like MIT was harder to get into, that's what it's like getting into Y Combinator. Um, there's a lot of learning. It feels like you kind of open yourself up to this different universe. I think for myself and my co-founder, we're Canadian. Don't hold it against us. But we came from Canada, and we had no idea about Silicon Valley. We had no idea how any of this stuff worked, and so we were just two engineers, total outsiders, and it sort of just opened the doors for us, and uh, yeah, expanded the opportunity for us really, really quickly. Um, it was fun. Yeah, I'm still very involved in the YC stuff. Like it's like something that doesn't leave you. It's like you're in a group, it's like a club or something. I don't know.
Even
People
more
say it's a
than
cult, bit of a
Yeah,
cult.
but even more than being like an alum at a school. Like I've heard, from what I've
Way
heard, there's
more.
way more deeper ties. So how many programs do you actually see that have the program and year that you were a part of it, that a lot of people include in like their LinkedIn name, like company names and things like that. So it really speaks to what the community that they've built and that kind of branding that you also get as a result of being a Y Combinator company.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think there's a level of trust for consumers too, for those consumers that know that brand and see it. There's a like Y Combinator is really hard to get into. There's a level of um, I don't know, like responsibility or um, I almost want to say like karma. No, not karma. That's not the word I'm looking for. Um, like the values that Y Combinator founders hold are just a different standard. Like we're all working hard to make these products for people. Like it's very rare that I'll meet a YC founder that I don't like. Like uh, they're usually all pretty awesome people that are building great companies and are trying to change the world and make the world a better place. And it's like very rare where you'll find a YC founder that is like a bad actor, and actually you can get kicked out of YC. So if you get reported as a bad actor, you can get kicked out. So yeah, for consumers that know it's definitely a stamp of approval.
As we, by the way, as we begin to wrap up here, I would love to hear your thoughts, and then we'll have kind of some rapid fire questions. But I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on where you think Trust Payments will be, let's say, over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think you'll see us on most job sites, and that's kind of the goal. We want to be the tool that's powering the payments between the different transacting parties on a job site. So you'll kind of, like a Venmo or a Cash App, we want to be a tool that contractors have where they can move money around with, safety, security, and peace of mind, um, and without gouging them on any fees or pricing. And I think that's where we want to be, and that's what we're really focusing on.
It's time for the rapid fire questions
Sweet,
now.
let's do
So
it.
we're going to kick things off. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
I think build something people want. Like I know that's cheesy, but it's like, you think back to that, it's like a lot of people that try and start companies or build some app or product, it's always about them. And then I think if you switch the focus and it's like, what is the customer actually saying? What do they really want? What are they really trying to do? And so I think that's like some of the best advice I got is just like focus on the customer. What does the customer want? Build something that people want, not what you want.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. Um, but what I've also seen is like, also be the customer, like put yourself in the customer's
Yeah,
shoes, because like you see
yeah,
the feedback you receive from some of these customers, like I think one of the toughest parts of being a founder is taking that advice and then trying to put that futuristic approach on top of it of this is what people want, sure, but how do you predict what people will want also 2 years from now? What's that Henry Ford's quote, right?
So I have another good one that we can apply to this. When you're thinking of things to build, think about stuff that's not going to change in 10 years rather than things that are going to change. So like when I apply that to myself, like, we're still gonna have banks in 10, I think we're still gonna have banks in 10 years. Um, Rather than things that are going to change. I think it's really difficult to have a crystal ball to anticipate what's going to change in the future, but it's much easier to try and predict what's not going to change.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's actually I think that's a big thing that Apple and a few of the major tech companies ended up focusing in on. Like what are the constants and what are the variables that we need to watch out for? Um, but the constants are like when building something, there should be those constants should be very much involved in the future product
Yeah.
roadmap, right?
It's like
Interesting.
the AI pin, like the AI pin stuff and like the rabbit thing. It's like this is just so
I
stupid,
knew
right?
that was going to fail the minute it came out.
Like
How they got
it made
money?
no sense.
How'd they get money?
Oh, come on, a lot worse people have gotten
Well,
money. How did
I know,
FTX
but
get
like you're an LP
money?
though. You're an LP putting money into this. Like you can't be happy. Like like you were just saying. I don't want to like call anyone out either, right? Because I know like
Yeah.
part of investing is like taking big swings and sometimes you miss and sometimes you hit. But I mean, it's like
Okay, so the AI pin thing, I'm a Star Trek fan, so I kind of like thought back to Star. I was like, that's kind of cool.
yeah, you
It's
thought
kind
it
of
was
cool. It's like
cool.
Star
Did you think
Trek.
like,
I
oh,
thought it was
I'm
cool.
gonna use this all the
Is it going to
time?
replace the phone? And then Apple's, developer conference just kind of destroyed any kind of prospect of any of these companies.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
and anyone
that's okay.
what though, kudos to the team though for like we need still people that are thinking 10 years out and
Yeah.
building that, and we might be laughing at it now, but they were just so early, and 10 15 years from now we're using that technology, right? And they were the kind of the early pioneers of it, but at the
Yeah, we'll
time
see.
it was just like what was the other one during the pandemic? I was like, this is a fad if I've ever seen one. What was the chat?
I don't
I
know.
can't even remember it now. Remember the chat? You could go on the voice chat thing where you could hop into these.
Oh, Huddle. It's like
See, you don't even
Huddles
remember.
or
See, this
something.
is the crazy thing. Raised.
Anyway, Huddles. But yeah, but what's interesting is that all of the social media platforms ended up adding that to their platform. So now if you go on X or if you go on I don't have Facebook, but
Yeah, they
uh,
have that audio chat.
they built it in. Yeah, they built in audio chat. They just took it as a feature and they put it in there. So
But
it didn't disappear, it just morphed into the existing platforms we
but
have.
it was a feature that raised, I want to say like 100 million plus in order to like build it out. I know there were some big firms that backed it. But again, that was something I was like, this is just people are home, they're bored, they're in their house. Anyway, last question for you as we wrap up here, and that's really around who really inspires you. That this can be a family member, this can be someone in the industry who really inspires you that you think they've had an impact on you as well.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
These aren't quick hitters. I need to change my quick hitters because these are
Yeah, I
these
don't
are
know if these are quick hitters.
these
These are
are
like
yeah
these are like think about it
yeah.
questions.
All right, we'll fix
Um,
that.
these aren't quick hitters. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I admire my dad a lot. My dad's an entrepreneur. He had like a property management company when I was growing up. Um, he's always smiling about something. He doesn't take life very seriously, which I appreciate. He's always like smiling about something. He handles stress really well. And I think I learned that from him because trust me, to build a banking startup, building fintech is like startups on hard mode. And so like you have to be able to handle quite a lot of stress to be able to do this. And so I appreciate um, the kind of lessons that he instilled. I'm, you know, if I had a second career, I might be like a stand-up comedian or something,
I
because
love it.
I don't know. I like, even though I have all the stress and I'm building a bank, I still make good, terrible jokes, probably terrible jokes.
Play those comedy movies in your head throughout the day. That's what I have to do. Whenever I have a moment where I'm just like stressed, I need to think about something funny and just zone out for a second and then get back to what I need to do. But
Yeah.
well, hey, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and chatting through some stuff with us and getting to know you a bit. Let's definitely stay in touch. Would love to talk more and collaborate.
Mm. Let's do it, man. I appreciate the time, and thanks for listening, guys.